So, editing Kayla, I hope you can make sense of all of this. Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf where we talk about books. Today I wanted to talk a bit about why I read and what's changed since I've started this channel back in January. There's a few things that have changed with my reading in general over the last year since starting the channel. And I also just wanted to share a bit about why I like reading. I've seen some other booktubers talk about this as well, and I love hearing their discussions about it. And I just wanted to share my own thoughts on it, my own experiences with it. So come, sit, have a drink, get cozy. Let's talk about this. Full disclaimer, I typically script or at least have bullet points for videos when I'm recording. I haven't done that for this video. I just wanted to talk about it and I thought it'd be nice to try just sitting down and talking to you guys. So if the format's a little different, if my train of thought gets lost, we'll see how this goes. First of all, let's talk about what my reading history has been like. When I was a kid, I actually struggled a lot with reading. I did the whole hooked on phonics thing, if anyone remembers or knows what that is. I struggled with my reading. I was always behind, and I always admired people who could read for enjoyment. It wasn't something that came easily to me, and I felt like it was homework. It was a job or a chore to try and get my reading skill up. And so it was not always enjoyable to sit down with a book as I had to work harder at getting my reading level where it should have been. Now, as I got better with reading, I used to buy those little skinny storybooks, chapter books that you could get for kids, such as the Borrowers, for example. These were just short stories, things that I could read a page or two at a time and put it down. And even when Harry Potter came out, I struggled with that. I actually would sit down with my mother and she would read chapter by chapter for me. And even then, I had a hard time sitting still and staying to listen to the story. I since have read the books and love them, but at that time, it was really tricky. As I got older and reading became easier, I started to enjoy reading more and spent a lot of my time in bookstores. I went on to read a bunch of different books from The Giver to the Sunwing series, I think it was called, among many others. This was just a stage in my life where I was just trying to figure out what I enjoyed reading, what I was looking to get out of reading as well. I didn't always finish the books I started, and I definitely didn't continue series that I started as well, mostly for the reason that I had a bad habit with if a book even ends with a little bit of closure, I was fine. I didn't need to continue the series to find out what happened, even if I had the knowledge that the book I was currently reading was even a part of a series, because that was a whole other issue. As I moved into my mid-20s to present, my reading experiences have changed significantly, starting with discovering authors like Brandon Sanderson and Adrian Tchaikovsky for just a couple examples. These were authors who made me realize what I could get out of reading, from the hinted moments that went over my head and later turned into big reveals to just the pure enjoyment and thought-provoking scenes that you could get from these books that would either keep you thinking after the fact or give you such an emotional impact or just pure enjoyment. These were all things that I enjoyed finding from books over the last few years, decade? Am I that old? Probably. So why I read today is because I just enjoy reading. I don't watch a whole lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of movies. I prefer reading and I prefer my other hobbies, which include music and crafting, such as knitting and crochet. When it comes down to it, a lot of my hobbies are introverted or I make introverted. For example, with my music stuff, I don't play for other people, I play for me. I play because I enjoy it. I read for me because I enjoy reading and finding new stories, new emotional impacts, new situations that I maybe never would have thought about before, getting new experiences in a way that I wouldn't outside of my own life. Even new ideas, thinking about things that I might not have before. These are all reasons why I love to read today. As for my personal reading preferences, fantasy and sci-fi are my main two. I do enjoy classics, some historical fiction, among other genres, but those two seem to stand out in my reading preferences. Partly why is I think authors can explore so much more in it. They can go into deeper portrayals of them. Not to say that classics or other genres don't. I just feel like those are the two genres that work for me to get the experience I'm looking for, the outcomes that I'm looking to get from it, whether it's enjoyment, whether it's a thought provoking experience. Both of them I feel like hit better for me than some of the other genres. Classics are another genre that I enjoy, mostly because it feels a little bit more close to home in some ways. It's set in the real world. Fantasy and sci-fi, they're escapism reads for me, and that's a big reason why I like them too. But with classics, coming back down to some of the life lessons that we can get in our day-to-day, what life might have been like when those books were written, and how literature was different back then as well, is all something I like experiencing from that genre. To summarize, a big reason why I like reading is escapism, but also enjoyment and learning new things. Those are the big three for me. I just like having different experiences that I might not have gotten through movies, TV shows, through my day-to-day life. Now let's talk about what's changed since I've started making these videos and this channel. While I read a lot of books before starting the channel, I was definitely more of a mood reader. Even when I initially started the channel, I mood read. I read what I want when I wanted to read it. I did the occasional buddy read. For me, that's how I feel like I get the best enjoyment out of my reading experience. However, since starting the channel and since I've been reading more self-published or indie books, which was one of my reading goals for this year, it's completely changed in sense of I now have a lot more commitment reads than I ever would have before starting this channel. And that's not a bad thing in particular. However, it did take getting used to, as mood reading really kept me out of reading slumps. That's the end of it. I stayed out of reading slumps by picking up what I wanted when I wanted to, by being able to just put a book down when I was halfway through and coming back to it later. It's just changed entirely. When I pick a book up now, I either finish it or I completely DNF it. DNFs definitely don't happen very often for me, though I do feel like I need to finish the book I'm reading more quickly than I used to. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just how my reading has changed since starting the channel. Being able to find new ways to enjoy books while changing my reading habits has been interesting. I've definitely hit some moments where I felt a bit burnt out or like I was getting into a slump. And in those moments, I try and use a wild card to change things up randomly, which is why you'll see books in my wrap-ups that I never might have talked about in my MBR videos. The other thing that's changed is being able to work with authors, getting review copies in exchange for honest reviews, being able to chat with authors in the background about what I enjoyed, maybe what I didn't enjoy, and just being able to share my reading experience with them has been an incredible experience. Now, of course, every author is different in how I've interacted with them, and it's overall been extremely positive. The only thing that has really changed is I've read probably more fantasy genre than I've read in previous years. And not to mention the commitment reads, as I am doing reviews in exchange for a copy of the book. For me, this adds a bit of professionalism to how I handle the interaction between myself and the author, as much as it can to a hobby, because that's what this is. I started this as a hobby, a means of sharing my reading experiences and just having fun with. But at the same time, I do want to treat those situations with professionalism. So to wrap up and summarize, how my reading experience has changed since starting the channel has included a change in my reading habits, from mood reading to having more commitment reads than I've ever done, to talking to all of you about what I've read. I feel like that's been one of the harder parts, is to be able to express what I enjoyed from these books without giving you spoilers, because I also don't like getting spoiled for certain things in books, including potential emotional trauma. I like experiencing that without knowing that it's coming up. These are things that I just try to translate into reviews as best as I can, highlight the things that I enjoyed, comment on things maybe that didn't work for me, and being able to share that with all of you has been a completely different experience as well. Another thing that I've loved, in addition to being able to share with all of you, is all the friends that I've made in this community and the connections I've made. All of you are amazing and have made this such a positive experience that I never would have expected. When I started this, I basically had zero goals. I knew I wanted to talk about books, I knew I wanted to share my reading experiences, and within a short few months, that completely took off into something I was never expecting. And friendships is a big thing for me. Being able to share and joke with all of the people I've made friendships with have just, they make my day. So thank you. One thing I hope to do in 2023 is to broaden my reading a bit more. Like I said, I used to read a lot more diversely, and I feel like that's narrowed down since starting the channel. So in 2023, I'd really like to open that back up again, read more classics and historical fiction like I used to, and just be able to maybe pick up more books spontaneously like I used to. That's just something I feel like I miss and I'd like to go back to, and balancing the two is something I'm going to focus on next year. So that is all of my ramblings on why I read and what my reading has been like. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I feel like there's probably more I could add, but at this point, I'm probably just going to ramble. So I'm going to leave it here. I'd love to hear from you though. Why do you like to read? What do you enjoy from your reading? What do you want to get out of your reading experience? Do you like analyzing books? Do you just love reading for the sake of reading, no matter what kind of experience you have, whether it be fun or maybe not a great time? I'd love to hear from you. Leave your comments down below. As always, thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves.